everyone. Welcome to Teachings of the Ascended Masters on Fallen Angels, Nephilim, and UFOs. This is episode 7. And in our last episode, we were reading from Mysteries of the Holy Grail.
Yes.
This is the book here that we're reading from, the Ascended Masters, Mysteries of the Holy Grail. And we were quoting from this book, and we're going to start there, continuing on the third paragraph of our quote. So, it says that some with Lucifer created synthetic planets with synthetic evolutions, computerized, robotized, functioning as the outermost satellite of a solar system. An example would be like Pluto.
Yes.
Or as moons of so-called legitimate planets. These stations, astral, physical in vibration, have served from time to time in the history of the galaxies to hold computers for the programming of life waves of a solar system in mass. Mechanization and manipulation of their own solar energies. Now, if that's not a mouthful, I don't know what is. Because you're talking now about a synthetic satellite revolving around a legitimate planet that is completely taken over by the forces of these mechanized individuals created by the Satans and the Luciferians.
Yes.
And it would inhabit probably the internal area of these satellites. Now, and that's why I think, I just want to point out why it mentioned that they're in a astral physical. So they are physically seen, but the beings could also be in the astral plane on the surface or on the interior of the satellite.
And not be seen by anyone.
Right.
You see, otherwise they would be discovered.
Well, of course, they'd be.
I mean,
you don't
people
want that.
would say, oh, there's people running around on Pluto. You know, there's people running around on such and such asteroid. So Pluto is basically a space station, you know. It said here, and that reminds us of, you know, the Death Star in Star Wars.
Again, right.
And I'm not saying that Pluto is exactly like the Death Star.
Right.
But the fact that they do this has come up in that movie as a part of cosmic history.
Again, it's a resurfacing of these memories of what's really going on. There are other very unusual satellites around the various planets in our own solar system.
Yes, and we're not even going to get into that. But if you look at the solar system, you see very strange goings-on.
Right. And if anyone wanted to, I had done this several months ago, or if not longer. If you just Google anomalies of satellites of planets, you will come upon a tremendous amount of information in regards to what was just quoted here from Mysteries of the Holy Grail. So the idea to use computers to program life waves, I mean, this is, you know, that programming to a point of, you know, we don't know to what extent they're able to do this. But again, there is protection on your end, wouldn't you say?
There's protection on our end for those who, let's say, merit protection, in the sense that there has to be a certain amount of spiritual light invoked, whether that's by the Hail Mary, whether that's by Buddhist mantras, Hindu mantras, whether that's by the signs of the spoken word, the decrees that are given forth in the Ascended Masters, by the signs of the spoken word.
The various prayers that
the
people of Islam do.
But all of the
several
religions.
times a day.
I mean,
calls to Allah in the morning like that is a protective sheath that will, you know, neutralize those computerized frequencies that are pointed and directed at this planet.
And of course, there's also direct intercession by the archangels for those who karmically merit it and live a relatively spiritual life, in the sense that they are invoking light, that they are following the precepts of Islam, the precepts of Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, the Ten Commandments, the Sermon on the Mount, and so forth. that are trying to live spiritual lives, that would be then a good karma that would tend to neutralize all of this programming, and especially, the violet transmuting flame that
Right.
you've seen at the bottom figure of the chart of the presence.
So in one sense, whether you know this actually exists or not, if you're following those precepts, you're going to be able to help yourself and other people on the planet, because a prayer for yourself isn't just for yourself. And this is just my opinion now at this point. You're helping the evolutions of light, those souls of light on any given planet, especially this one, that needs all the help it can get after what we've read so far. And so to be, engaged in that kind of a thing is great for the whole raising up
Yes.
of the race, of the
Yes.
evolutions of light, that is.
Yes,
It
yes.
doesn't do a lot of good for mechanized man.
Right. Well,
That's their own karma that they created.
yeah, well, of course, they didn't create themselves,
No.
so that's what got the Frankenstein monster so upset and so forth,
Right.
that he, this creator, why did you create me?
Right.
I just wanted to throw out something regarding mechanization man in general, that during the Piscean dispensation, which was the last 2,000 years, and which has ended probably around 2001, although some would say it was 2010, the end of the Piscean age, and now we're, of course, right into the age of Aquarius. During that 2,000 years, there was a dispensation that came forth from the Great White Brotherhood, the Ascended Masters,
Cosmic councils.
the Cosmic Councils, that if you accepted the Master Jesus as the avatar of the Piscean age, and you were mechanization man, or you were Homo sapiens. Now, we did not get into the Homo sapiens yet, but we will. If you can take, if they can take any more.
No.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
If then you were a mechanization man with no soul and no threefold flame, as we have stated, and if you accepted Jesus somehow by your friends, or there's a possibility that sometimes the light is around these mechanization men, or that they read something spiritual, you could actually, being a mechanization man, earn a threefold flame, for starters.
Which is the divine spark, is what we would
It's
say.
the divine spark that is in the heart that you saw in the chart of the presence in the lower figure. You see that magnificent flame of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, divine will, divine wisdom, and divine love. So if you made obeisance to Jesus, if you said, I accept him, you could start with the threefold flame. And that was a special dispensation of Jesus and the Cosmic Council,
Right. I
as
just
we have
want
said.
to throw in there also, because we have many people of all different religions.
Yes.
It's irrelevant what religion you currently belong to, or if you don't even belong to a religion. You may be agnostic, you may be whatever you are, it doesn't matter. Jesus would have done this throughout the planet, irregardless of what you believe you are, and that you're following the precepts of the religion that you're in, which is wonderful. But our understanding is that from the Ascended Masters is that it doesn't matter to Jesus who you are, or what you believe, or what you don't believe. If one merits a threefold flame, the divine spark, then it's going to happen. And now we're starting to get in that distinguishing factor. What does distinguish the soul, right, from mechanized man? And I think that's one of the distinguishing factors.
Yes.
Whether the divine spark is there.
That's kind of the beginning.
Yeah.
And then, it's possible that you could continue to become more spiritually endowed, let's say, with an actual spiritual soul. But this thing about Jesus accepting him, it wasn't Jesus' decision or doing. It goes way back to the Garden of Eden and so forth, with regard to Jesus being the one that you would accept. So as Stephen said, there was also a possibility of accepting Jesus on the inner planes, on the higher planes, on the etheric plane. But he was the one that was chosen by the council to be that avatar. And that was like kind of a special office, let's say. It was a special office whereby,
For a 2,000-year period.
for 2,000-year period. And we cannot guarantee or state whether this dispensation is current in the Aquarian age, but it definitely was current in the Piscean age. And about previous dispensations, we're not aware of that at this point.
Right. Okay, so let's continue with
Okay.
the story of
Well, all of this happened on Earth tens of millions of years ago. So the race that was inhabiting Earth at this time was called the fourth root race in esoteric tradition.
And basically, that's like a life wave of so many millions of souls. Would you say?
Yes, it's a mandala. It's a group of souls that have the same, let's say, mission. Now, the term fourth relates to the fourth ray. We're not talking about any races now that inhabit the planet today. The fourth race was on the fourth ray of divine purity and the ray of the mother. That was the race that was here at the time of the Luciferian invasion. So there were three previous races.
I was just going to ask that. You're
Yeah,
talking about the
yeah,
fourth one. It's
yeah,
literally
yeah.
a number, also in the sense that
Right.
that means there had to have been a first, a second, and a third.
Yes, and there was. In
Maybe just
fact,
briefly
yeah.
talk about that a little
The
bit.
three previous races were on the first, second, and third rays. They were mandalas of souls, groups of souls with the same mission. They completed their spiritual evolution and went through the ascension. And these, we're talking now about millions of people in each race. They went through initiation, they went through training, they lived in what would be called a golden age on planet Earth before the Luciferian invasion. They made the ascension, as we said. And these races were on the first three rays. Now, the first ray, again, was the ray of divine will and power. The second ray is the ray of wisdom. And the third ray is divine love. And they had to master those rays, those energies. And they did master them. They were taught that evil existed. They were shown other planets that succumbed to the Luciferians, what happened to the planets. They were taught all of the intricacies of what you were explaining about how brilliant the fallen ones are and how they take over planets and how people are programmed. They were taught all of this, but they made a decision en masse to not go there. In other words, to not compromise. They knew what would happen, and some other planet said, well, let's try it out.
Right.
You know, let's see
Whether
what
to get
happens.
involved
If we
or
go
not.
to a lower level, you know, maybe we can do our own thing. You know,
Right.
maybe we can, like, not have the chain of command.
See, and this
for
shows
instance.
again, as the Ascended Masters teach, that there is spiritual evolution.
Yes,
You know, and these three root races inhabited physical dimensions, etheric dimensions. They were in different areas, and they were just more spiritually evolved for probably karmic reasons. Everything falls back to
Yes.
some kind of a karmic pattern as to why the first three root races can see the energy veil known as evil
yeah,
and not engage in it. Yet the fourth root race comes along, and whatever karmic pattern they're carrying with them as a race,
yes,
right?
yes,
They don't quite. Some of them say, well, I wonder if I lower my vibration and engage in what's going on here, just to see what it's like. I have mastery.
and of course
I can get in there.
I can get out of it.
Well, sure, you can get
I
out.
can
You-
I can get out of it really quick.
Right.
I can just raise my vibration up. Well,
Right,
can you?
right. And they
Because
didn't
it's
know
very subtle.
that the subtleties and that the lowering, it's easier to lower one's vibration than to raise it back up again.
Yes, it is.
That's the basic concept and idea here that the Ascended Masters do teach. So, you talked about the previous races. They completed their spiritual evolution, the first three,
Yes,
and then you can continue now with the fourth root race, I believe, of that they were vulnerable.
Yes, and we know that this was the race. This was the race that was invaded by the Luciferians, that lost the contact to the higher self due to vulnerability, due to compromise. So this life wave, the fourth race on Earth, submitted to what Lucifer likes to call his glorious revolution. Instead, eventually now, as the race declined, because remember, the fallen angels were taking physical embodiment on Earth. The god Lucifer became their savior, you see. And of course, as the so-called savior, he wanted to, like, amalgamate power and basically rule over a planet and keep everything under his control. And this is all based upon revenge against God for casting him out.
Right.
You have to remember that.
With him,
Now, I just want to
these.
point out, and of course, all the legions, so that, again, they're forced to take embodiment, but not just on this planet. We went through that. I just want to let everyone know, Stephen, that the Ascended Masters did reveal that the infamy of the fallen angels, at the very beginning of their rebellion, goes back in cosmic history 250 million years.
That's quite a long time.
And this was one of the dates that was given by the Ascended Masters to show how long this has been going on and where it's been going on.
Right.
So
And when we give a date like that out, it doesn't necessarily mean that is the exact time when the Luciferians were immediately cast out and were starting to embody on Earth.
right,
Or is it the beginning of the rebellion that began, as we said, in the etheric realms? But it's just to give perspective that
Yes.
we're talking about a time frame of 250 million years.
yes,
And it gives one perspective of how long these individuals were at it.
yes, and they're
they're
still
back
at
in
it, but there's a lot of problems with
Right.
their being still at it.
Yeah, the story gets a lot better as we go on here because, as we said before, we just hinted, the cosmic councils are not just going to sit around and watch a planet or other planets be taken over and not do anything about it.
Right.
So before we get there, let's talk about, you were mentioning about the revolution. And I just wanted to mention that we talk about rebels when you had said that Lucifer is considered the first rebel against rebelling against his cosmic hierarchies. Now, I just want to say that, in today, when there are, let's say, people who are in a tyrannical environment in a particular nation or area or wherever it may be,
Yes.
when they start to fight against that tyranny for their own individual freedom, many times the opposition calls them rebels.
Right.
So this is a common thing, and we have seen this throughout history, where as soon as someone rise up against the tyranny
of the fallen angels.
right, of those in power that are truly tyrannical to the people that they're ruling over,
Yes.
they're the rebels. And you see in the, again, we're going to go back to the Star Wars movie, where the rebels in this situation were the good guys.
Yeah.
They would be considered, in our scenario, the souls of light.
The Jedi.
Yeah, that we're fighting against. So when we specifically talk about Lucifer as a rebel, we're switching it around where the rebel is the bad guy
Yeah.
in that sense.
Yes.
But we just wanted to put that out there so
Yeah.
that we don't fall prey to the idea that just because you're a rebel, you're automatically bad.
No, not at all. That was the original rebellion. They call it, the Brotherhood has called it the Great Rebellion that we discussed with Peshawalga and Lucifer. Well, the people of Earth at this point became what you might call separatists. I mean, they were cut off from the spiritual hierarchy under the influence of the fallen angels, as we know. Mm-hmm. This was during what was called the Lemurian epoch. The Lemurian epoch. I don't know if I pronounced that right.
That's good enough.
Oh, okay. We'll go with
Lemuria or Epoch?
It's also known, epoch.
So Lemuria is also known as Mu,
Epoch.
as you know. If you Google Lemuria, you'll sometimes see the land of Mu. It's known as various things, and
Yes.
we're not going to get too involved in what the time frames
Yes.
of the time of Lemuria, but just know that the Ascended Masters are talking about the fourth root race. Then is embodying during this.
Right. They
time
are
frame.
already an embodiment,
And
and
Lemuria is up in a viable
yeah,
continent.
yeah,
Things
yeah.
are happening on Lemuria.
where the Pacific Ocean now is.
Right.
But so Lucifer and serpents. Now, this is the first time I'm mentioning serpent. There was a fallen angel connected with the band called Serpent. Now, Serpent was a fallen angel, very brilliant in the arts of deception and seduction. Why? The serpent or serpent was an office in the spiritual hierarchy of one who had raised the Kundalini energy of the mother. I don't want to get too technical, but the energy of the mother rises up to the crown chakra. And that was the office of, quote, serpent. But this particular person who had this office fell. He went after Lucifer, but yet he still now distorted his office and became very deceptive and seductive. Mm-hmm. So Serpent basically came out and proclaimed to the people of Lemuria, in other words, the races there, the fourth race, he said, your teachers and your gurus have duped you. They are keeping their powers from you. We have methods and powers that they do not have. If you follow us, your liberators, you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil.
Now that's a familiar term.
Right. And where does that come
if
from?
you're familiar with biblical,
Genesis.
Yes, if you're familiar with the Bible, knowing good and evil. But what he's saying is that it is necessary to know good and evil. And I just want to point out that if you saw that in writing, it would be a lowercase g and a lowercase e because you're in a relative world of good and evil.
Yes.
Where everything is relative to something else. Something is not that good and it's not that evil. And he's explaining that you can know both and be fine. And when you were mentioning the Kundalini, I just wanted to say that, many people realize what the Kundalini is, especially in India.
Yes.
And it's the raising of that base chakra, raising that energy to the crown. But I just want to throw out there that the Ascended Masters teach that it is better to focus on the heart. And in that process, you can also raise the energy of the Kundalini. I just wanted to...
No, good. Thank you for doing that. Because in the West, we have the Hail Mary, which also raises the Kundalini. In the East, you have the mantras to the Divine Mother in all of her forms and manifestations in India. That also raises the Kundalini and the Mother. But of course, now the thing is that if the natural flow of spiritual evolution is from the base chakra to the crown chakra, the energies are going up. The Luciferians had to come up with a lot of ideas to make the energy go down or never let it go up and siphon it off. The energy of the Divine Mother, the white light, siphon that energy off.
Right, so when you say going down, we're meaning that the energy stays below the heart.
Yes.
People are probably familiar with some of these 7 centers, the centers of light.
The chakras.
Chakras, they could be called. Crystal chalices, they could be called.
Yes.
And when you had mentioned Hail Mary, the Ascended Masters revealed that is actually saying Hail Ma Ray. And the Ma Ray, or the Mother Ray, is focused in the base of the spine chakra. And so if someone that is kind of like, well, I'm not sure about Christian prayer, I'm not sure about
Mary,
Mother Mary, or what you use that. If you can change the dial of the your consciousness, realize that you're just saying hail to the Ma Ray that is in you.
Yeah.
And so yes, the energy is lowering now below the heart and staying focused in the lower chakras. And as you said, they're siphoning it off. And
what are some of the methods by which that light would be siphoned off?
Oh, well, no, you got to ask me that now. I just can't answer that right. Look at your notes.
It's on 5 pages.
Well, before we go there, I just wanted to talk about, you mentioned serpent, and people relate serpent to the Garden of Eden, because we all know about the alleged snake that is running around the garden.
Right, that
and
talks.
it does what it does. But I just want, before we get to the Garden of Eden, because we're quite not there yet.
No, we're not there yet.
We're pre-Garden of Eden, but the idea of serpent existing prior to that,
Yes.
I just want to point that out, so that we're way before the Garden of Eden incident happens. And I was saying before that there's a lot going on here. You know, you already said that 250 million years ago is the infamy of the fallen ones.
Yes.
Time has passed. We're not saying how much time yet. We don't quite know that. But the cosmic councils are not necessarily going to just sit around and watch this outplay,
Exactly.
right? So we're going to be coming up to the part where we start to explain what exactly the cosmic councils have a plan.
Yes.
What do they have in mind to do with this planet that is fairly corrupted, but we didn't yet go into how corrupted.
No.
You know,
No.
and I think before we go there, we might have to hold this over to another episode to
Yes.
explain what the cosmic councils are going to do, what their plans are, and how corrupt is the Earth at this point. Because as we said,
Yes,
we're pre
that's a good
the
point.
Garden of Eden. Most people think that everything fell apart at the point of the Garden of Eden. And we're not even there yet. You got a
No.
mess going on here. You got satellites
You got
going around planets.
you got
mechanized
siphoning off
man.
energy. You got
Right,
bad rhythms. You got all kinds of stuff to keep the
right.
energy down
So
below the
I
heart.
think we should hold off to the next episode to explain what the cosmic councils do.
Because it's a beautiful story and it's an amazing story.
And this is where the amazing hope of what the cosmic councils, if you like to say God, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Allah, they know what's going on and they're going to do something about it. So let's perhaps end here. And in our next episode, we will be going into what was the extent of the fall and what did the cosmic councils do about it. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.